Well, so today we're going to talk about stereotypes, in specific the stereotype to the Russians, to the Russians. And well, in this image we could see two Russian guys. They are wearing a beret. They are also wearing Adidas clothes, and they are fooding on his haunches. They seem that they are in a cold place, like um, also in a lonely place, and they seem very serious. Um, Judging by the context and where they are, um, I believe they are into medium or low social class. And well, let's start defining what is a stereotype. A stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Mm, some characteristics that which defines an stereotype is that they are simplified. They do not give details of the idea or the image. They are exaggerated, and that they generalize. This stereotype generalizes it can be applied to more than one people or more than a group of people. So um, stereotypes are based on illogical beliefs because they generalize, also in prejudice, and they are they define behavior models. And these stereotypes are persistent in our daily life because they are transferred to us through the upbringing, which is the education that our parents give us, the formal education, which is the education that schools and life, it could be said, give us, and also media and publicity, which nowadays um, repercute in a very important way in how we see the things or how we use stereotypes. Um, it could be considered that there are some types of stereotypes which are racial, classist, of ideology or political ideology, of gender, and now there is a new one, which is the internet stereotype. That involves, for example, the groups that are especially on the internet, for example, freakies, geeks, and all of those kind of people. So the stereotype of the Russians that we're going to talk about, it's a combination between the racial stereotype and the internet stereotype. This is because this stereotype emerged on the internet when some guys, some Russian guys, which accomplished those characteristics of the guys from the image, started to upload videos of them doing random stuff and dancing in a very strange way, etc. So it is and also it is racial because it englobes a race, it could be said, which is the Russian race, if you could say it like that. And well, how did this stereotype come about? Well, first of all, these people which are Russians and which accomplish with those characteristics um, are members of a group in Russia which are called the Gopniks, which into its traduction from Russian it means street robbery. Even though they are not that bad, they do not robber, they are like normal people, it could be said. They do not commit major crimes. Um, And the history of these people is that in the 1980s, the industrialization in Russia were was increasing, and a lot of people of the rural zones wanted to start to live in the industrialized zones. So, foreseeing that, the Russian government built um, a lot of um, a lot of places for those people who were supposed to move to from the rural zones to the industrialized zones. They would build buildings with a lot of space and a lot of rooms for well the people that will move on to the city. So it started with that because in the end not a lot of people or not a lot of people from what they expected moved on, and the ones who moved on had a very um, cheap rent because the demand was very low and there was a lot of offer. So first of all, this is an important characteristic for its emergence. Also because with the salary of an normal worker from an industry, they could afford easily the what they needed to pay for those places, for those buildings, and it also live for their necessities and also for their wishes. So they didn't need to work that hard for living good. And well, what happened here is that, not including the people who were working always and all of that, um, there were not much to do, and people didn't knew what to do because there were no entertaining places there because it was all full of buildings for the people to live. So these kind of people started um, to realize their hobbies or their likes. For example, drinking vodka and doing this kind of meetings between them to chat and to have fun, all of that. And there it started like these groups for people which are the gopniks. And well, some of their characteristics are that well nowadays they their their way to sit, or yes, to sit it could be said, is doing a very strange squat, because and they do that because of the behavior attributed to the Russian culture to avoid sitting on the ground because it was very cold the ground in there because there is a cold climate there. Also the Adidas clothes, they use Adidas clothes in because they were popularized in the 1980s also, in the Moscow Olympics. They drink a lot of vodka, or well, they drink vodka oftenly, and well, this may be a kind of stereotype, not only for them but for all Russians, because it's kind of true that they drink a lot of vodka. Um, and also, these characteristics like impressed a lot of people in the media because when they search in media doing their strange dances and all of that, these kind of characteristics call the attention. So the implications of people seeing Russians like with this stereotype is that people well, are seeing the Russians like crazy people because these guys are generally doing crazy things. Um, plus a combination of one of its more representative icons, which is Vladimir Putin, his president. Well, its president. This combination of these icons, um, it leads into the fact that a lot of people are seeing Russians like this, but as we define, stereotypes only generalize, so we could not use this idea to define how Russians are. So, a solution for this problem of the stereotyping Russian is to recognize the differences between the Gopniks and the other Russians, because the Gopniks are only it could be said small in comparison to all the people of Russia. They're a small group, and well, they only represent this small group. And as Russia is a very, very, very big country, it obviously do not represent the, didn't even represent the most of the Russian population. Um, and also, I will say that, in conclusion, stereotypes, especially the ones that we are not familiar with, should not be applied strictly. What stereotypes do at the end of the day is that they give us a superficial perception of the idea of someone or something, but because it is superficial and general, we should not take as our only reference for defining this idea or people, because, well, they could have differences and all of that. So, yeah, I would say that, concluding, stereotypes should not define how we see something or someone completely.